Hey guys, it's March, and you're listening to Hola Bichola, Casa de Dragons. All right, guys, welcome to episode 2. I don't know what I'm going to call this episode just yet, but you know what? Never mind. I'm going to call it Rhaenyra's Rage, because that's really where we're at in this episode. So we start off with Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra tampoco. Here we go. So we open up with a new opening sequence, which hell yeah, finally. Because at first, with the first episode, I wasn't sure if they were just, if we were still kind of watching the teaser episode or a teaser opening, or I don't know what took him so long or why we didn't get in the first episode. But second episode, here we are. And we get this beautiful opening sequence with blood. Lots of blood. If any of you can remember that video, that meme where he goes, blood. I can't think of blood without saying that anymore. Anyway, the opening sequence, it really felt like, for me, like you could touch it through the screen. Like, I thought the blood was going to pour onto me. Because you know how it was like pouring through all of those like valleys and hallways and steps. And I was expecting it to come through the TV. I don't know about you, but I know for me, that's what I was feeling. And another thing I really like was how we still get the same song. Because at first I wasn't sure if, like, again, with the first episode, it was just kind of like an homage. We were just going to get, the same song is kind of a reminder to bring everybody in. But the fact that we get the same song for this new season just feels so exciting and comforting. And I just feel like I just want to be cozy in my sweater and have my lights on low and I'm just ready for the bloodshed to come. So I love that the opening song still gives me that feeling, kind of preps me for what's to come on this episode. So the opening scene, we're in this like crab island. And I know in the past episode they talked about feeding the crab feeders or something like that. And so I just kind of thought like, it was just actually really disgusting. It made my skin itch a lot. And I don't know if any of you have that thing that I will not name that makes you phobic to the things that make your skin itch and skin crawl. I was definitely experiencing that, especially like scales. Oh, sores. I can't do it. Not me, not I. But that scene felt ominous to what's coming. Just these bottom feeders, in a sense, feeding amongst like the shipwrecked pirates. So then we're in the king's small council room, which finally got the name. It's not a meeting room, it's not the king's room, it's the small council room where the small council meets. So naturally it would be the small council room. So there you go. Finally got one name correct. And they're discussing this, what seemed like battle. We have Corlys who kind of comes in and he's saying there is a battle, or we've been attacked by these crab feeders or something like that, or crab wars. I don't know. And you can tell that Rhaenyra, she's listening in the background, and all of the men are speaking over each other and about what they're going to do with the situation. And basically the king at this time is looking pretty weak because he wants to not attack the attackers because he thinks of them as like small game. But Corlys, who's the master of driftwood, would know otherwise. So while they're all talking over each other and yelling, we have Rhaenyra, who is listening, and she speaks. And I swear, you hear all the men sighing, like, God forbid a 15-year-old teenager could potentially have a solution to a problem in this kingdom. No, they dismiss her. I think Otto Hightower is like sighing, like, ugh, a woman speaking. God, get her out of here. And so they did. They got her out of there. And the king sends Rhaenyra to the King's Guard, like picking the new man knight to look after or lead the King's Guard. And so at the time, you would think that that was a bad idea, that he's kind of kicking her out, giving her busy work. But I actually think it was a really good idea for her to go and pick someone who's going to lead the King's Guard. That's kind of where she wants to be anyway. She wants to be in battle. She wants to be fighting. So what better than to let her pick, leave it up to her to decide who's going to lead the King's Guard, the King's men, all the King's horses, to crawl up the tower again, if you know what I'm saying. So finally, we see a conversation between her and Christian Cole. Christian Cole is the knight rider who she put a flower on his stick during the joust, if you guys remember that. So she's kind of getting to meet everybody, but she ends up deciding to choose Christian anyway, because obviously that's where we're going with the story. And, well, not so much obvious, but you get my drift. Anyway, they're having a discussion about his history and why he is what is that term I'm thinking of? Why he should be chosen to lead the King's Guard. And out of all of the men there, he's the only one who has, I guess, experience battling outside of like a jousting tourney, as she'd like to call all the other men. They're tourneymens. They're men who've never been to actual battle. But Christian obviously has, and so she's going to want him. Again, I think this is a good idea. I think we want Rhaenyra to be in the thick of it with all of the armed metal men, right? Because if she's going to heir the throne, then why wouldn't she be there? Kind of going with like the bottom men. Not the bottom men. They're not bottoms, obviously. I mean, some might be, but I mean, like, the high level of hierarchy, you first want to like get cozy with the army, right? I mean, if I was a king, I would start there. I would get cozy with the men who are supposed to protect me and, work my way up. But I'm also not a king, so maybe I have no experience with that. So while this is happening, we notice, or we're taken to the king, Viserys, and Alicent. So I want to make a correction here. I said her name was Cersei. I don't know why I said that, but I think it's because there's a C in her name in Alicent. So I think I just went off with that. But yeah, her name is not Cersei. It is Alicent. Well, I mean, maybe they're a little close. Cersei, Alicent. You get where I'm going with this. I think it's a very common, normal, practical mistake to make. Cersei and Alicent are basically the same name. So, argue with someone else about that. So these two are talking, and you can tell that they've spent a lot of time together, because they said it's been 6 months since they've been spending time together. So we can also assume that Emma, that's the queen's name, she actually had a name, and she's been gone for 6 months. So we can already tell how much we're going to be jumping time. We're in the second episode and it's been already 6 months. Like, what's the third episode going to be like? Have we jumped like 10 years? Because, I mean, that's 6 months is a pretty big time jump from one episode to the next. So, I would say it's been 6 months and they've been spending a lot of time together. And Rhaenyra doesn't know about this. I mean, I don't believe that Rhaenyra doesn't know. I believe she knows, but she doesn't want to like come to terms with that, because what 15-year-old is so like unaware of her environment? I mean, the girl is everywhere and she doesn't know that her BFF is spending time with her daddy alone a lot. I don't think so. That doesn't sound like a typical 15-year-old. And 15-year-olds are about the same throughout time. Even in fantasy, the 15-year-old is nosy. A 15-year-old is loud. They're everywhere. They know everything. I'm scared of 15-year-olds today. So, like, I don't know what adult isn't afraid of a 15-year-old. I'm afraid of 15-year-old me. So, I think it's safe to say that I'm not buying she doesn't know her best friend is spending time with her dad. I just don't think she wants to know. And that's okay. We don't all have to face everything at the same time. Like, we'll come to terms with it when we're ready, right? That's growth, no? Okay. No, maybe, I don't know where I'm going with that. Okay, so we jump from Rhaenyra and Alicent. Nope. We jump from Alicent and King Viserys to Alicent and Rhaenyra. So clearly she's playing both sides. And that's why I don't like Alicent. Not one bit. She's playing both sides. Like, she's playing her dad. She's playing her, what's his name? She's playing her king, which kings should be played, you know. But you don't play your best friend. You are not to be trusted. And she's sitting there, sitting beside Rhaenyra, asking her to just like be vulnerable and be open and speak. And Alicent acts like she can talk for the king already. I'm telling you, 15-year-olds are not to be trusted. So she's with Rhaenyra in the sept, and they're praying to what I think they're praying, and there's like, you know, if you've already seen it, there's like a pool and they have candles all around it. And you can see like one of their gods or goddesses kind of in the background with a shadow. And they're praying, and there's kind of like a puddle of water. To me, it was giving blood. I wasn't getting water from that. I was getting blood. And I was wondering, doesn't it smell in there? Like, how could they be in this place that's so big? I mean, they probably have like really good ventilation. Because I just thought like, oh my goodness, it probably smells like iron in there. But you know what? Then they're probably used to it. I can't imagine King's Landing is quite a good smelling town. I think it probably has all sorts of odors and fragrances mixed together that it's like, do you ever wonder what like King's Landing actually smells like? Because, you know, it probably just smells like hay and blood and meat and maggots and sourdough and wax. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think King's Landing smells like? Because that's what I'm getting. I'm getting like iron and sourdough. Anyway, so there's a moment here where we have King Viserys and Corlys. They're talking again because Corlys is obsessed with becoming king, or at the very least, you know, getting things right in order in a sense. And with this war that's happening with the crab feeders or these pirated people, there's this like what are they called? Let me get this right. Okay, so basically there's like a storm's a brewing, and Corlys is speaking in metaphors, and he is talking in old ways about storms and the water and the driftwood. And I can tell that the king doesn't really understand what he's talking about because he's looking a bit confused. And basically Corlys says, I'm really here to ask you to marry my daughter because there's a wars a brewing, there's a storms a coming, and with you being single and my daughter being available, we should consummate this relationship to make the bloodlines even stronger. Because again, they're only concerned about bloodlines and the strength of the bloodlines and the kingdom and who gets to be king. So, the king at this point, he's kind of like, well, I don't really know your daughter. And Corlys is like, does it really matter whether you know my daughter or not? What's more important is that these bloodlines are stronger than ever so that you can show your strength to the kingdom. And he's kind of like, I have a rotting hand. I'm not that concerned with showing my strength right now. But he considers it anyway. But we know that the king is not going to get married to Valerion's, Corlys's daughter, because as it turns out, if you're not a book reader, you probably won't know this, and you'll know this now. There's like a big map of the family lines. I haven't seen it, but my husband did see it, and he's freaking out about it. Every time we watch an episode, he's just kind of like, oh my God, if you only knew what's about to happen. But I used to be really big on like spoilers don't affect me, and spoilers still don't, but like I'm not seeking spoilers. But if something does get spoiled for me, it's no big deal. But if you tell me spoiler warning, I might not. I might not want to have something spoiled because I have the opportunity to not have it spoiled. But if it happens to get spoiled, I don't care. And that's another reason why I haven't like looked up anything specific to House of the Dragon, because I don't want spoilers. I want to be able to enjoy it with the same fresh look that I did when I was watching Game of Thrones. I knew nothing about Game of Thrones, nothing whatsoever. I just knew it was kind of like old world and a little bit fantastical. And so I thought, why not? I can play this while I'm at work. So, I would like to not have this ruined for me just yet. I've seen the thing, the family lines, like a while ago, but I had no idea what was going on. And now that I know more, I don't want to see it. But if you do, it is out there. And it's a pretty good way of reducing your anxiety if you're like nervous about how things are going to play out. I would say give it a look. But I'm not ready yet, so I'm not going to. Okay, so now we're having a dinner, and it's a dinner's between Daddy and Ray, and it's just so bleak. And the funny thing about that in particular like scene is that it felt really relatable, because it feels like today parents don't know how to talk to their teenage children. Thankfully, I don't have teenagers just yet, but it feels like, it's the one thing that doesn't change over time about relationships between people, is that you have a father and a daughter who've suffered a loss, and they don't know how to talk to each other, because they couldn't be more worlds apart. But if only one thing I learned, if anything, when it comes to conversation, is that a conversation begins with a sentence. You got to start somewhere. So, guys, we have to change. We have to change these relationships, because they're just so, it's just so easy to like see yourself on screen. You're like, yeah, I don't know how to talk to my parent. My parent literally doesn't know how to talk to me. Cool. Oh, man. Okay. So as this dinner is also happening, you can just see Ray's rage simmering. And that's one thing that I felt was really strong in this episode, was every time we encountered Ray, she was simmering, she was seething. But it was if every teenage girl knows that simmering burn look in the eyes, I've definitely recognized. And that's what I recognized in this episode, was really Ray's rage. And we'll see that more as we see more of that when we when we learn about Damon's, what looks like Damon is going against the crown, going against his niece. And before that, there's a bunch of other things that happen that you were just kind of like part of the episode, where the king talks to Lena Velaryon, and she's a child. She is a baby. She is so little and is reciting these adult words, and you can just tell her parents are sick. I know that it's a custom, especially in these worlds. She is 12. She barely looked 12. I mean, she looked like she was about 8 or 9 years old. She wasn't even passing for 12, at least not to me. And I'm really glad that what we discover on later in the episode is that the king chooses otherwise. So to bring it back to the outline of the story, while the king is talking to Lena Velaryon, Rhaenys is on a balcony, and she's observing Rhaenyra. And I love this scene so much because it was so nice to see women sitting on a balcony just enjoying the sight and the breeze. And they were just sitting, and Rey is watching Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra is looking at Rey. And you have these two women who basically deserve the throne, are owed the throne. They are owed the throne. And now they're kind of, you would think that Rhaenyra is like fighting with Rhaenyra. I know the names sound the same, and it's very confusing for sure. But we have, Rhaenyra, the queen who never was, fighting with the princess. And you think they're fighting, at least from the perspective of Rey, the princess. She believes her aunt is trying to like get a rise out of her. Or her cousin is trying to get a rise out of her, trying to make her angry. And the queen who never was, with her wisdom and her age, basically says, I'm not trying to get a rise out of you. I'm literally telling you how this game is played. And if you really want to be taken seriously, you have to act more aggressively than they think you would ever act. And I thought that was just good advice for her, basically preparing Rhaenyra for what's to come, because the kingdom had every opportunity to pick Rhaenyra as a queen. And like Rhaenyra said, they would rather burn the entire kingdom down than to ever see a woman serve as the queen of the realm. And that's very true for a lot, even still to this day. Even though they're in different timelines, different worlds, it's still very true. Them and us, it's still seemingly very true. And so yeah, I just thought that scene was so beautiful. You see these women who are just casually hanging out on a balcony, taking in the sight, taking in the breeze, having like real, almost like they're, playing chess or thinking of like war tactics or something like that, or passing on, war strategies or something like that. So once they have their words, we have the king and Alicent again. And you can tell that he's become very fond of her and their time together. And, she's a ripe, young 15-year-old girl who's entertaining the king as her daddy has requested of her, Otto Hightower. And poor girl she's falling apart on the inside. We just see her like picking her flesh apart. It's just, she doesn't have to do this. But that's what happens when you're a traitor. You start to eat your own self. So I'm not surprised that that's what's coming to her. So now we're back in the small room council, and we learned that Daemon is starting. He's sending out a message that he took the dragon's stone, or the dragon's egg that belonged to Balon, who was the baby who passed away. He took the dragon's egg. Then he mentioned that he's going to take on a second wife and go all FLDS on us and marry his whore. And apparently she's with child, allegedly, according to Daemon. And there's all this conversations happening. And basically he's taken Dragonstone, which belongs to his niece, the new heir. But he doesn't care about that. And he's getting married, and he sent an invitation to the king, a really threatening one. And the king was going to go deal with it, but then Otto decided that he was going to go instead because the king has other things to worry about. Let the hand take care of this. So they get to Dragonstone, and on our way to Dragonstone, I don't remember seeing Dragonstone from this angle, but man, is that place cliffy. Not just cliffy, stony, and really clouded. Like, I don't even know how they were able to like dock their ships. Like, where did they dock their ships? The sea was literally fighting and clashing with the shore. Anyway, it's fantasy, so they managed to dock their ships. And they finally walk up all 10,000 steps it takes to get to Dragonstone. And they meet in the middle with Daemon, who we all know as Paimon. And they're having a discussion, and it's really going nowhere. The hand, I don't even know why he's there, what he's there for. He thought he was doing something. Christian Cole, he was also there blabbing about something. And during this moment, we kept cutting to like the King's Guard. And I thought the King's Guard was going to go against the hand and like maybe cut the hand's head off or something and go with Team Paimon, be summoned, and party, and then we would really get into a war. But that didn't happen at all. He was just scared because of the dragon that Daemon has, which I actually forgot about. Because I'm not used to having so much dragon time. And my goodness, in this episode we got 2 dragons. We had to see 2 dragons in one episode, in episode 2, in the first season. I mean, God would never. So, they're having a conversation, and like I said, it's going nowhere. And so here comes Rhaenyra out of nowhere, coming up from the clouds, literally bodying everybody. She lands and walks her cute little petite self. It was so cute. She was like a cute little petite self. Walks up to her uncle. They start speaking old High Valyrian. And they basically sort it out. She calls him out on his bluff. He gives her the egg. And then she goes on her merry way. Something no one else could do. I mean, if that isn't boss-ass behavior, I don't know what is. I mean, no blood was shed. Daemon literally was kind of like walked with like his tail between his legs. And she flew out of there. Again, they could never. And she did it all in a day's time. She gets back home, and her daddy is not happy about this interaction whatsoever. And so while they're having a conversation, Daemon and his lady, her name is Lady Mysaria, and they're having a conversation about how she thought he was gonna liberate her from fear, and he's kind of like, why on earth would you ever think that? I'm Paimon. You're in eternal servitude to me. You're with the dark side. No rest for the wicked type of thing. And so now he has to deal with that war. So he's probably fighting his own 2-3 front war at this time. And so now we're back with Daddy and Ray, and they're just like trying to figure out why they're kind of weird together. And finally somebody talks, and they discuss their mom and how much they miss her, but her daddy has to marry. And she's like, Daddy, I know it. I understand your role. I get it. It is so important for you. I am so understanding. And so here she thought, I understand my dad's going to get married. He's going to marry my second or third cousin because that's just the Targaryen way. And then we learn that that's not what happens. We're back in the small council, back with the small men, or the small, you know what I'm talking about. Because we're always here. We're never not in the small council room. And the king goes, I have an announcement. And so he says, I'm ready to wed. I've decided on a bride. And here comes Corlys, like adjusting himself, like getting ready to stand up and cheers to the realm and their union. And then the king goes, I'm going to marry Alicent Hightower. And he basically stomps out of the room because he's just like so sick of the Targaryens. He is so sick of the king. He has had it. He's like, no one takes me seriously in this house. I've put my all. These men don't know nothing about earning anything. So he steps out. But little do we know, Ray is in the corner, raging, seething. She is hot lava fire. And she looks at her dad because she believed they had an understanding. Because, you know, she's so understanding. She looks at her dad, and she looks at Alicent, and she looks at her dad. And she too runs away because, you've been spending the last 6 months with my father and I didn't even know about it. You couldn't even have the courage to tell me, your best friend. It's utter betrayal. You don't do that to your friend. You don't do that to your best friend. She is not to be trusted. I'm not even going to trust her. I'm never trusting her. I'm personally never trusting her. I can't imagine Rhaenyra is going to ever trust her. But, you know, that's their relationship. I only know what I see. And if she forgives her, doesn't mean I'm going to be ready to forgive her. Do you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's kind of where we're at in that relationship. I'm actually pretty upset about this. That she never told her, because that's just not what friends do. Friends talk to each other, especially best friends. So we kind of end with that scene. And then there's and so now we move on to the last scene, as if that wasn't enough. And we're observing Corlys, and he's having this conversation. What I was feeling that he was talking to was this someone or something. I thought maybe he was talking to like a skeleton, that he was just having his like weekly ritualistic one-on-one therapy sessions, him and an old skeleton of like a family relative. I really thought we were going to go in that direction. But it was quite close. He was actually talking to Paimon, or Daemon. And they were having a discussion about how they're the second sons, which, if you guys remember, I don't know if there's a connection there, but I feel like there is a connection there, right? And they're having a conversations about how like they're always overlooked and they've fought for everything. Very middle kid energy. All right, this is one-on-one middle kid energy, that they've fought for everything that they've had, and everyone's always overlooking them. They're never in line. They're always in line, but they never get the position. So we ended with this new seemingly alliance between Damon and Corliss. So I didn't see that coming. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't see it coming. What do you know? You know, I don't know the seas, and I don't know. It is what it is at this point. But yeah, that's kind of the episode. That's what I got for y'all today. I'm again super excited. I love how quickly we're jumping through time. And it seems like we're going to meet Aegon pretty soon. I don't know if that's going to be in the next episode, but we've all heard endlessly about King Aegon. So I wonder how much time we're going to go through this in the first season. Like, are we only going to get one season? You know, I don't know. There's just so many more questions that we have left. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the second episode of Casa de Dragons. And yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up on hbxpod@gmail.com and hbx on Instagram, Hola Bichola on TikTok. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.